We are live. This is the NBA Rundown. The channel is nuked the house, and boy, what a terrible weekend for me in the NBA. Really frustrating right now. Was talking to Tyler about where we're going wrong here, and so we're definitely going to fix this as fast as possible. The best part about the NBA is you don't need to wait a week to get right. We have more games tonight. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff I saw this weekend, and then we will dive right into tonight's games and find those winners. So let's see, what did we flub on yesterday? We took the Timberwolves. You know what? I have to start with these good teams. You got to remember how important home court advantage is. For example, let's just say the Timberwolves and the Mavericks were playing in a playoff series. Timberwolves would be like -5, -6 on the first game. And then when they got to game 3 and they got back to Dallas, Dallas would be favored by 3 or 4 points. Yet the Timberwolves were laying 3 to 3.5 here. And I know we don't have the adjustments, right, that we normally would have during the playoff series that kind of gives the team going back home because they're usually in a deficit and advantage. We still have to think about that. And I feel like I definitely walked into a trap on that one. I regret not playing the Pelicans against the Kings. They have the Kings number. They won 133 to 100. At one point, they were up by 40 or 45 points. I tried to watch it. It was kind of rough. So I gave up on that earlier. I wish I would have jumped in on the Magic. That injury report scared me off. But Atlanta, to me, is just right on the baseline between being a good team and not a good team. They're tough to handicap. But for the most part, I mean, they're 14-21 this year. They're one of the worst teams against the spread. I should be trying to find opportunities to fade these teams. And that game did go to overtime. But that's one of the great parts about taking the home team is overtime, the home team almost always wins. So Clyde says the Kings are the worst team in Cali, but that title might go to the last team that I made a mistake on, and that was taking the Golden State Warriors at home. And I think I've just been too conditioned over the last few years to take the Warriors at home and to fade the Raptors on the road. So I feel like, pressing right now, we crushed November. December, we were completely spinning our wheels. And so I'm feeling the pressure to get back. And sometimes when you do that, you go back to old habits. And that's why, like in sports, that's why you train so hard, because under pressure, you're going to revert to what you do the most. So that's why boxers constantly being told, do your best jab, even if it's practice, even if it's tired, because in the real fight, you're going to get tired. And I feel like I'm in that real fight right now as we're spinning our wheels and really trying to find solid footing here in the National Basketball Association. So there was a quick bit of self-reflection there. Anything else I wanted to talk about from the weekend? Let me talk about Saturday because some of those games will come tonight. The Pacers were 7-point dogs at home. I like the Pacers there. And that wasn't even close. Now, I'm going to pull up this box score real quick because that's going to come into this game tonight because they are going to play each other again. Pacers really shot poorly at home. When I scroll down, the team was 8 of 42 from 3, 17 of 22 from the line. But 8 of 42 for 3, it's going to be tough to win. To contrast, though, right, I'm just not going to go right back to the Celtics because they didn't necessarily shoot that well either. 16 of 41 from three-point range. So the Celtics do have some of that same positive regression in there. The other thing that we have to look at when we're taking what we saw on Saturday and applying it to that game tonight, how much of that Pacers, those bad three-point shots were caused by the Celtics defense? Because I did watch the game. And there was a lot of times they were chucking up at the end of the shot clock shots that I would not have liked, right? Buddy Hield, right? We see that a lot with him. But, it's less than 5 seconds to go. You get a couple quick dribbles, you throw up a shot. But That's not the shot that Coach Rick Carlisle wanted. What a muted performance from Tyrese Halliburton in that Saturday game where he only had 17, 6, and 7. Shows how good he is that's a muted performance. But he's going to have to be better if they're going to cover that spread again tonight. So we will be talking about the Celtics and the Pacers a little bit later. The Bucks and the Rockets are two teams that I'm also struggling with right now. My idea on the Bucks was they're actually pretty good, and the fact that they've lost to the Pacers so many times, it's lowering their net rating. Maybe that's not true because I didn't bet that game, and it sucked because my brain liked the Bucks. My projections said take the Rockets. I didn't listen. I stayed off because they were conflicting, and I thought that was a good win for Houston. Because one thing I was concerned about with Houston is I'm going to double check this and make sure because I didn't have as many eyes on that game. I was more focused on the Celtics and the Pacers. But yes, Dillon Brooks once again sat out, and I was thinking he meant a lot to that defense because then you have Jalen Green coming off the bench, which I thought worked perfectly. I see Robert, and you messaged me that last night, and since we're talking about the Bucks, I'll pull it up right now. He says the Bucks are going to be really good defensively without Lillard, and I wonder how much. And Robert, I think a lot of that is that they took one of the best. They replaced Lillard. I mean, they replaced Drew Holiday, who's one of the best defenders in the NBA, right? So not only it's not like Lillard is just replacing this average defender, right? I mean, or above average, even like a Fred VanVleet, who I'd say is pretty good, right? De'Aaron Fox can be okay at times. Mike Conley's not quick enough, but at least he knows what to do. But you're not replacing one of those. You're replacing one of the best point of attack defenders, and they've gone from the worst. This is where really it's incumbent on Coach Adrian Griffin to figure out more schemes because you can win with one small guard who's exploitable, and the rest of the team is pretty good. They just haven't figured out how to do it yet. So yeah, that'll be something interesting there. But my main takeaway is that maybe I'm a little higher on the Bucks than I should be, and I really don't know what to make of the Rockets. I was so high on them. They started out hot. I'm patting myself on the back. I got this team perfectly. Then they went into a little slump. Here's where a good coach like Ime Udoka, I think, is really going to help because I don't think there'll be those prolonged slumps. We're seeing that also in Sacramento. One of the reasons I do like Coach Mike Brown. I don't think we're going to get prolonged slumps, even though we have had some disappointing performances from the Sacramento Kings. The Chicago Bulls are -6 tonight. They're in Charlotte taking on the Hornets. Boy, what a rough game this is, right? I mean, so the Bulls got Zach LaVine back, and I thought that was going to be a disaster, but they were able to cover, and I believe it was against the Hornets, actually, in his first game back. He came off the bench. He had a pretty good shooting night overall from the field. Most of that was done in the paint and the mid-range as he was only 1 from 5 from 3. So you got to expect him to get better. Our main concern about LaVine going back in the lineup is how much better the defensive play of the Chicago Bulls had been with Zach LaVine out. So in the first game, he kind of assuaged those concerns. I still think those concerns are legitimate. However, we're playing the same exact team tonight, right? Charlotte, who we are concerned is not going to be able to keep up here because we know that this team doesn't have LaMelo Ball. Cody Martin is questionable for tonight. Mark Williams still out, although they're playing Nick Richards. Not much of a drop-off there as far as the starting lineup. Where that really hurts the team is now you don't have Nick Richards coming off the bench. And I believe – so Gordon Hayward, Frankie Nichols, and P.J. Washington have all been on the report as well. I want to see if Alex Caruso is playing, and I'm going to throw some numbers in here while we're talking about this game. When I'm looking at Chicago and Charlotte, Chicago's gone under in their last 5 games. So that's something I want to consider. Although we have to wonder now that LaVine's back in the lineup, is that trend kind of not as applicable because we know, number one, it makes the defense worse and the offense better. Also probably should pick up the pace a little bit. LaVine, it's excellent for such a guy that's so fast, straight line. I've never seen someone that's so straight line fast that really lacks the side-to-side agility as Zach LaVine. I mean, it's really crazy how fast he is straight line, and how it's side to side is not that good. But the point is he could increase the play. The total's gone under the last 5 times these teams have played, including their most recent matchup that I talked about, where Charlotte was I believe a 9-point home dog, because I was interested there. Tyler talked me out. Charlotte got out to a big lead, and then I was thinking, oh man, I knew we should have played it. The Bulls actually stormed back and absolutely crushed them. Charlotte is 4-1 in their last 5 home games. However, that one loss was against the Chicago Bulls. They're getting less points tonight. I'm going to look up on maybe see if there's a difference on the injury report, or if it's just off the strength that they did play the team well, and they probably should have covered that game. Obviously, Charlotte was disappointed there. Yeah, all the players I mentioned earlier are out. And it looks like, oh boy, see the Bulls side, and this is where the line's probably dropping. Vukovic is probable, but Caruso and Levine and Patrick Williams, who are all an important part of those teams, are all game time decisions. The way this line is looking right now, I think the books expect at least 2 or 3 of those guys to sit. Now, if it was Levine sitting, that doesn't affect my handicap of the Bulls at all. But I think Caruso and Williams are both important to that team, even though they don't do a lot in your fantasy basketball teams. Those are great guys to have coming off the bench and on the defensive end. Although it looks like Williams will be a starter if he's in there. Caruso could also potentially start if Zach LaVine were to sit. So I got to throw some numbers in here real quick, but I'm expecting that it's going to project me to take the Bulls. However, I don't think I want to do that. I think the zigzag is in effect here. Total's only 215. I do have a slight lean to the over here, but we talked about how these teams have been going under. So right now I'm fine staying away from this game, especially because, like I said, I've been spinning my wheels these last couple of weeks. I want to be real selective to get back on track. What I need to do, right, just like in fitness or dieting, you had a bad weekend, you ate too much. You know what you have to do? You need to stack some wins, right? You have a good day eating. You get out there, you do that run. You get a good workout in, right? That's how you stack a win to gain momentum. That's what I'm going to do here today with these NBA picks. Now, the Boston Celtics are -3 tonight. I talked about how that game was out to +7 when I played it on Saturday. And unfortunately, I didn't give it out because it was just kind of a late play and I didn't feel good about it. And it was for good reason because it ended up going home. I talked about both teams, but especially the Indiana Pacers struggled shooting from the field. My guess is, and I'm going to check this opener, my guess is the Pacers have taken money. It seems like an excellent bounce back spot here. Indiana's been playing well, but I also, I talk about that with the Bucks. I also wonder if you take out those games beating the Bucks, how impressive Indiana's really been. So, of course, they beat the Bucks. They absolutely smoked Atlanta. But I talked about earlier, Atlanta's really a borderline play-in team. Boston's the best team in the NBA. Okay, they beat the Knicks at home. I like that, although that was in that New Year's Day that we kind of throw out. But, yeah, they haven't really been stacking wins against impressive teams. And going into Christmas, they were on a losing streak. They've come out of that strong. Before that Boston Celtics game, they had won 6 in a row, including the game over Milwaukee, Chicago, in Houston. I mean, they stacked some good wins here. We're looking at Boston. They've been winning and covering. They have won and covered in each one of the wins in 7 of their last 8 games. Their sole loss and their sole when they did not cover was they were favored in Oklahoma City. But Oklahoma City is an excellent team. To me, Oklahoma City is way above where Indiana is. When we're talking about reasons to take Indiana, number one, the zigzag effect. This team is able to bounce back, although we did bet the zigzag with Milwaukee over Indiana when we were in a similar situation last week, and that didn't work at all. So we got to be careful there. Jason Tatum, who crushed the team on Saturday, is out. He had 38 in that game. However, I think the Celtics, they're so stacked. I believe they can absorb this loss. I mean, you're telling me Tatum's worth 4 points because Sam Hauser's not worth anything to the spread. And those are only 2 people on the well, let me double check. Let me make sure I'm on the right one. I'm going to go to the most updated injury report that I have. Yeah, all I see is Tatum and Hauser out. So I'm looking at a starting lineup on the Celtics side is Jrue Holiday, who's one of the best players I can have if I want to slow down Tyrese Halliburton. I don't think that muted performance from Halliburton on Saturday was a coincidence or just an off night. I believe Jrue Holiday had a lot to do with it. Then you have one of the other better guards. So even if they're trying to switch, it's not like you can target Derek White. You could argue it this year because when I'm talking about Holiday's defensive prowess, I'm going off the strength of his career, me seeing him shut down people in the playoffs when it matters. But you can argue this year, Derek White has actually played better on defense than Jrue Holiday. And Jrue Holiday has not been bad. So this is the best defensive backcourt in the NBA. Most likely, I mean, if you want to throw one in the chat and you think that one is better, I mean, I would do it. I'm just saying off the top of my head, but I'm just looking. Holiday and White, their only issue is size. Like a big backcourt could give them trouble. That's a good, solid background, right? Then I have Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis. Who are you attacking here? Porzingis has been playing pretty good defensively. I always thought that he was a guy before his time in Boston that got a lot of great stats, but failed to really be impactful on the defensive end. Where I thought that Turner, even though the stats were similar, was making more of an impact. But as Porzingis has moved into his prime, and now Turner's kind of moving out of his prime, I would say they're equal on the defensive end. Bruce Brown, who we talked about being so important to this team, is a game-time decision. Also, Andrew Nembhard, I think someone that they'd really like to have tonight to keep Holiday and White occupied. Also questionable. Isaiah Jackson, I like him as a player, but he doesn't mean anything to the point spread because it's not a cluster injury. I can see some minutes with Jalen Smith at the 5, and I think that's absolutely fine here. So I know I want to zigzag, but I do think that the -3 is being overvalued. The Tatum loss is being overvalued by the books because it's moved 4 points. Now, this is tough because I haven't run them yet, but my guess is the projections are going to like the Indiana Pacers at this number. I can do actually a quick estimate here because I have most of the numbers plugged in. I just hadn't updated for today. Yeah, it's kind of slightly like Indiana, but in my head, I'm going to go on the superstar subtraction theory, kind of like Boston to get another win here. And I think that we'll say, oh, well, Indiana, they shot so bad, they have to shoot better. And my argument is I think the Boston Celtics had a lot to do with that poor shooting night. From what I saw, it's not like they did miss some wide open looks. It's not like they didn't. But a lot of those three-pointers were late in the shot clock. They weren't the shots that the team was designed for, and they definitely weren't wide open corner threes. They were a couple feet behind the line in the middle of the court. So I think they will shoot better, but just assuming that they're going to get back to that 40, 50% that they shoot against Milwaukee and some of these other teams that they look great, that's hard to see. So right now, I'm going to go against the projections, and boy, we'll see. That's smart. But right now, I like the Boston Celtics in that game. You know how much I love superstar subtraction. I feel like I'm getting a free 3 points. At most, I would say Tatum's worth 1 or 2. Now, you're saying, oh, you don't think Tatum's good? No, I do think he's good. But the Boston Celtics are one of the deepest teams in the league, so they absorb that loss so much easier than, say, the Lakers when LeBron or AD sits. Well, who's on the bench? Who's replacing them? Do you see my point? So the fact that the Celtics are so deep means I believe that the books are overvaluing this loss of Jason Tatum here. Total is 247. Pretty low in a Pacers game. I'll pull that back up because they shot so poorly. I don't think they went over last time, but I also think it was so much higher. Let me pull that back up real quick. Yeah, see, it was only 219 on a 249. Do I expect that to zigzag? I don't know. I really don't know there. So I know my projections will like the under, and I think that's the only way I'd play it. But who wants to play an under in a Pacers game? Especially when you're struggling like I have been this last month. Especially when we talked about we're stacking wins and we're being selective. I don't need to take in an under in a Pacers game. That's a contrarian play, right? That's that's a way to get smart, and I'm fine with it. And if you're in the chat and you tell me you love the under, I'm not going to be against it. But at the same time, when I'm being more selective, I'm trying to stack wins and get out of this funk. I don't care what the projections say. I'm not taking the under there. But that's what my numbers are going to like. I'll pull a couple trends on that game as well. I think this is a fun game. I think it's really interesting, especially to see how Indiana responds to this loss. Going against what right now is the best team in the East, because Milwaukee just has not been able to get it together. Boston's 8-1 in its last 9 games. Boston's 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 on the road. However, Indiana 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games. The one they lost, though, was against the Boston Celtics. So 2 teams that are trending well against the spread as of late. I like the Celtics -3 because I believe they moved the line too much in reaction to the Jason Tatum injury. The Oklahoma City Thunder are -11. This is a fun one, guys, because we know a lot of times with these larger spreads that our projections are going to tell us to take the favorite. Yeah, why do you say that, spread? Well, they're not going to post the line if it's just really too high. And there's certain teams, the Washington Wizards, the Detroit Pistons, and off and on the San Antonio Spurs, although now that they've put Trey Jones back in the lineup, I don't know if they're going to be that terrible, terrible team now that they've ended the Point Sohan experiment. I believe the Spurs might be moving out of it. But specifically, the Wizards and the Pistons have been getting blown out so bad that when you model like I do, when you're basically just going off results, I put a little bit of my own thought in there. Like I have my own view of where I view these teams, and I have that as a weighted metric as well, which is my way of just making sure I don't get the same exact numbers as the sports book. But you're never going to be told to take these teams. I mean, it's going to have you come out to 14 or 15. And like I said, I haven't pumped everything in here, but I can take a quick look. And my guess is it's going to be right around the number on this one. It's going to be right around 11.5. This normally we say we don't want to lay it. To me, this game is lay it or don't play it. Like I said, though, I'm being selective. I'm trying to stack wins this week. This is a momentum building week, right? If this was NFL, I'm calling my best plays this week. I need to get a win this week. I'm not messing around. I feel like I'm kind of messing around in this game. Oklahoma City 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 against Washington. Why does that not surprise me? Because Oklahoma City's kind of like Washington. They're young, they're hungry, they take the regular season seriously, and they're just more athletic, and they have better shooters at almost every position. So you have a team that, number one, isn't going to roll over. Like, do you think Boston gets up to play Washington? Do you think Milwaukee gets up to play Washington? Do you think the Lakers get up to play Washington? No, but Oklahoma City gets up for almost every game, which is why they've been one of the best teams against the spread this season. The total's gone over in 4 of Oklahoma City's last 5 games against Washington. Doesn't surprise me. Washington's one of the fastest paced teams in the league, and we've talked about it's easier to get a team to play fast than to play slow. And so I think Oklahoma City's got no problem running and gunning with Washington, because even though it's technically Washington's own game, they can beat it at it. They're young enough. They're not going to get tired. Washington, however, is 13-6 in its last 19 when playing against Oklahoma City. Oh, wow. That's a big deal, right? No. They play once a year in Washington. It's a 19-year trend. I want to go back and even think about, I mean, has Oklahoma City even been in Oklahoma City for 19 years? What year did they move? I remember it was one of Kevin Durant's early years. My point is, don't be fooled by that trend. I think these other two are much more like 4 out of 5, right? That's a 2.5-year trend. I'm fine on that one. 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 against Washington. About 3 years there. I'm okay with that. I'm not using a 19-year trend onto simple teams. So to me, this is later. Don't play it, but I'm fine staying away. Total's 247. My projections have come in under a lot lately. Yeah, it's gonna tell me to take under here, but I'm not gonna do it. The Houston Rockets are +4. They're in Miami. They're taking on the Heat. The total is 219.5. Before, Miami at home used to be one of my favorite bets, and I'd fade Miami on the road, kind of like the Raptors. This year it's been the exact opposite. And maybe they trended a little last year and I just didn't notice. But Miami's not been good at home this year. Let me pull up some of their against the spread at home because it's been ugly and not that home court. What's the club LIV advantage that we were hoping to get? So when I look up the Heat, they're 5-10 against the number this year. However, the Rockets have not necessarily been road warriors either. They're 6-1 against the spread, while they're 14-6 at home against the spread. So the Rockets have been going under more often than under. They're 19 games under, 14 games over, 1 game landed on the closing number. When I give out these spreads, guys, I'm going against the closing number. The Heat have been 19 games to the under, 16 games to the over this year. So both these teams trending under, but nothing that just makes us knee-jerk want to bet it. We're going to have to dive into this game a little bit more. What are some other things going under? Another thing for the under, though, total's gone under in 4 of Houston's last 5 road games playing against Miami. Once again, this is different conferences, so this is a fighter trend. And Houston's been pretty bad. I don't know how much I like that. Miami's won straight up their last 5 games when playing at home against Houston. Once again, I don't know how applicable that is. This Houston team is so much better than we've seen in the past years. I can't remember what podcast it was, but I believe it's Dunked On because that's one of my favorites. They were talking about, hey, you want to get on Steven Silas. But look at the roster that he had last season. How many of those guys aren't even in the NBA last year? And they were rotation players on that Rockets team. So not only has the Rockets coaching got better, I think they had a great improvement on their actual personnel as well. So I'm not as excited about using these trends here. When I'm just guessing on the numbers again, I can't give you exact numbers, but just kind of looking at how these teams are performing. This was going to come in right on the number for me. Right on the number. I don't love this game. Let me look at the injury report here. I think you can make good arguments on both sides, so I'll go ahead and do that for you guys here. Dylan Brooks, Tari Easton still out. I'm not even mentioning Oladipo anymore. Kyle Lowry looks like probable. Caleb Martin doubtful. Jimmy Butler's still out. When is Butler going to come back? He's supposed to technically come back on the 10th. This has been out a long time. That would be 4 straight games. So I know he doesn't care about the regular season at all. So it's really interesting how they have that Heat culture, but then they just let him miss so many games. But I guess that's how things work in the modern NBA. And one thing you can say about him is when he is out there, he gets 100%, right? You can find those clips of Harden and Russ kind of resting on defense. And don't get me started on LeBron. But it's hard to find one of Butler being lazy. He's always active on both ends of the floor. So maybe that's why they're a little more lenient with him. So on the Houston side, that's a Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Deshaun Tate, who quietly has been a good member of this team, Jabari Smith, and Alperen Şengün. That's a nice starting lineup here. With these injuries, it's going to be Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, Amen Thompson, and most likely Cam Whitmore coming off the bench. Whitmore, of course, trying to find his feet in the NBA, and looks like this is going to be the role. He's going to be a bench spark plug, a guy to bring some scoring off the bench. With his lack of defensive ability and his size, I wonder if he's ever going to catch on as a closer on a quality team. But he's still a rookie, and we've seen guys develop. Amen Thompson was the guy I was hoping to get some more minutes, him and his brother. Both seem to be so good on the defensive end. They're just going to have to get a little better on offense to justify getting some minutes out there. All right, so I know you guys want me to take a stand here, and I'm going to be honest, I doubt I'm going to bet it. My projections are going to come pretty close to Miami by 4. If anything here, I guess I would just bet the under based on the trends of these teams. Let's see, what would I project it to? Yeah, I'm actually projected right around 220, my guess. So this game's really close to my numbers. If I were to make a play, though, I would jump in on the Miami Heat. And most likely, I like the under the best. In fact, I would not take the Heat. I take that back. I would take the +4 in the under, but I like the under 10 times more than I like the side there. The Utah Jazz are +8.5 in Milwaukee, taking on the Bucks. So Robert brought it up earlier. Now, how did this disappear? Can I confirm that there's no Dame tonight? Because Robert seems to think that that's going to improve their lineup a lot. So Dame Lillard is out. Robert thinks they're going to become a defensive juggernaut. However, Robert, I got some bad news for you. Do you know who's filling in for him? Malik Beasley. That's not much better. It's not much better at all. So I don't know if that defense gets better tonight, Robert, just because Malik Beasley starting ahead of Damian Lillard. On the Utah side, clean injury report. What is this? What sport am I watching? A clean injury report? Hallelujah. That means it'll be Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton, Fontecchio, Markkanen, and John Collins in the starting lineup. No Kessler, huh? They got okay. I don't like that Collins starting at center, but we'll see how it goes. That means Clarkson, Kessler, Keontae George, and Olynyk coming off the bench. These are some solid bench minutes here. These are some solid bench minutes. However, we talked about how poor this team is on the road. And I wouldn't be the first person to say this, but I think when we're making lines, the Jazz artificially inflate their net rating so much at home that we can overvalue them on the road and undervalue them at home. I mean, we talked about it on shows in the past, but this Utah team is not good on the road. Now, as I say that, they're coming off an 11-point win over the Sixers to start their road trip. However, they did lose by 30 the night before against the Pistons. And overall on the road this year, let me look at their splits. So actually, it's not as bad as I thought. They're 9-12 on the road. As a road underdog, they're 8-11 against the spread. So I guess it's not disastrous. But boy, I'll tell you what, I know my numbers are going to like Utah, but I'm really hesitant about getting involved here. Actually, maybe they won't. Actually, let's see. No. Yeah, I'm going to have this one pretty close to the number as well. Let's actually think about how they're going to match up because it's going to be a Giannis game for sure. I'm sure the books have already adjusted, but I'm sure Giannis props are going to be popular if you watch the other shows. I think a lot of people will like that, and it's hard for me to argue against it. Sometimes Occam's razor, the simplest is the best. Milwaukee, of course, is coming off a 4-point loss in Houston on Saturday. Utah also played in Philadelphia on Saturday. And it was the beginning of this. This will be the first game back home for Milwaukee, though, after the 3-game road trip, which is not good. I downgrade teams on their first game back home. I treat it like a road. I don't give home court advantage, that strong home court, until the second game back at home. First game back at home can be rough, a little bit of fatigue, of course, a lot going on. And this will be Utah's 3rd game on the road trip. This is a tough one. High total here. High total. Did these teams play recently? I thought they did. Maybe not. I'm going to look at Milwaukee real quick because Milwaukee's the reason this total is so high. They've gone under 4 of their last 5 games. And I think the reason it's pumped up because it's one of the games against Indiana. They put up a combined 272 on a 258. Some of these guys, when they go over so much. Also, they were pretty close to going under against the Spurs. I see a 246 on a 248. The under was easy against Houston as they only put up 220 on the 236. So if I were to jump in, boy, my projections have this about evening. My brain likes the Jazz plus the points, but I think you're really pushing it there. I think you're getting cute. And when we talk about edges, is that even 52%? I mean, if I have a Jazz plus 9, does that even overcome the VIG? I don't think so. This total's 242 right now, of course, with Dame out. And that seems like it's about fair. I will go under on this game, but once again, I don't love it. Let's talk about 2 teams that I believe both played last night, and that's the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers. I know the Clippers played last night because I saw them blow their lead against the Lakers. And for a team that had used to own the Lakers, feels like the Lakers have, they're starting to bounce back here. If I believe right, that's their second win over the Clippers this year. These two teams played on the 3rd of January, and the Phoenix Suns won the Clippers won 131 to 122 at home. But tonight they'll be playing in Phoenix, and the injury reports, my phone's just blowing up right now. That's distracting. Let me look at this injury report here. I just think it's tough to get involved in. So the Clippers should have everybody. Harden, Mann, George, Kawhi, and Zubac will be the starting lineup. On the other side, though, this is why it's hard to get involved with. Bol, Kevin Durant, Eric Gordon, and Nasir Little. Now, Bol, whatever. Eric Gordon and Nasir Little, normally they wouldn't mean a lot to us, to the spread, right? I mean, they're like all right players. Like Eric Gordon's cool. He used to be a lot better. He's getting up there. I think he's 35 now. Nasir Little, he's fine. He's fine as a role player. But the problem is this team is so lacking depth to begin with, right? If I'm projecting minutes with those guys out, I mean, Josh Okogie, doubt we'll get more Eubanks minutes. Then you go to Kenda, Keita, Bates, Diop, who's never really developed. He has the NBA athleticism, but he's never really become there. We got to get some Saban Lee, some Jordan Goodwin, some Utah Watanabe, who I thought would be a good pickup, hasn't helped. So that really hurts their depth that they're missing. I think this game's hard to get involved with until we know who's going to play. Let me see if I can guess by the line what the bookmakers think, because he's sitting there at a 50-50 questionable. At plus 6.5, that's telling me that they believe KD sits. Because my projections have that much lower. My projections have this as a 3 to 4 point Clippers win. So then we add about 3 points for Kevin Durant. It seems about right. So once again, guys, I hate to do this, but I can't get involved in this game without knowing that. And you know that I'm pro superstar subtraction, and maybe if things were going better, I'd grab the plus 6.5 and just know that I'm getting a steal if Durant ends up in there. But here's the thing. If he's not in there, I don't know if I trust this team to keep it close. The Clippers, they match up well against the Suns, I believe, because they don't have the center to take advantage of Zubac's liabilities, and they have multiple wings if KD's out to continue to throw at Booker. You can give him lots of different looks there. So I guess if KD's out, I think the 6.5 is the right side. But we're not going to get involved in that one till we know. Which brings me back to my best bet. I'm considering 2 road dogs here. My 2 considerations are the Chicago Bulls and the Boston Celtics. The Bulls are -6 in Charlotte, taking on a team that they beat by 12 or 13 last time, and whose injury report could actually be favorable to me because if Levine sits. I don't think that hurts me at all. That doesn't hurt my bet at all. Obviously I told you I'm worried about Caruso and Williams. Those are the 2 that I'm worried about. So because of that worry, right, because if Caruso or Williams are out, then this line is moved correctly. I'm going to go ahead and take the Boston Celtics -3. I don't think there will be any late scratches in that game. That would kind of suck because a lot of my handicap here on liking the Boston Celtics is the idea that if it's just Tatum out and Sam Hauser, I can absorb that. If we start to lose Jalen, we start to lose Derek White, Drew sits, then I don't like it as much. But with the lineup that I'm seeing right now, I think the Celtics have a great chance to cover this -3. And, hey, I could get burned here, but I'm willing to take that chance. My best bet for today is Boston Celtics -3. The channel is Nuke the House. Guys, give us a thumbs up. I was riding solo with you guys today. Probably should have checked out the chat even more, but I appreciate you guys, Robert and Clyde, for hanging out with me as well. Guys, football's winding down, so I'm going to expect more of you guys to be hanging out here for the NBA, and we're going to find the winners. If there's ever a bad time to go through a slump, it's when college football and the NFL are in full swing. But we're here. We're ready for the NBA, and that's why I grind through those months like December. That's why I take the pain that I felt yesterday missing on those NBA plays. So when the season heats up and everybody suddenly becomes an NBA handicapper, which usually happens right around the end of the Super Bowl, I'm prepared, and I know that I've done the work season long. I'm familiar with these teams, and as painful as it is, this is the type of thing that I believe separates me and my ability to handicap the NBA is the willingness to suffer through these tough times. Let's be honest. Those games weren't nearly as good as the NFL games yesterday. If you watch the Dolphins and the Bills, that was great drama. That was great theater, right? I didn't get that same feeling from the Lakers and the Clippers, right? I mean, it was a cool game. It didn't have that same urgency. So it is a tougher watch, but I'm here. I'm doing it for you. JC and Tyler are going to join me in 17 minutes. So stay tuned. You'll get the notification. And Perky, hopefully you join us there and we can get some drunk comments when we are talking touchdowns. Guys, give me a thumbs up and we'll see you soon.